Welcome to the CatFiveBoys podcast. I'm your host, Matt, and I'm here with my co-host, Maddie.
Hey everybody, hope everyone's doing well today.
And we have a guest today coming on. We have Luke. Say hi, Luke.
Hey guys, how's it going?
All right, before we get into the full introductions, just a couple of pre-show announcements, I suppose. Welcome, first and foremost. Thank you so much for listening to the show, listening to us talk about different things. You can be anywhere and be listening to anything and be doing anything right now, this very moment, but you're choosing to listen to us, and we appreciate it very much from the bottom of our hearts. It's very much appreciated. It doesn't go unnoticed, all right? So we appreciate it very much. Disclaimer, the views expressed on the show by the individual guests and or hosts do not necessarily reflect the views of the CatFiveBoys podcast. Further disclaimer, the topics that we speak on during the show sometimes can get a little bit deep, sometimes can get a little bit serious, a little bit sensitive. If that's not your thing, then this might not be the show for you, so beware of that. We have clips, so if you can't catch the full shows, but you want to get some of the best bits of each of the episodes, and I say some because if it was all, then what would be the point of the full episodes, right? So if you want to get some of the best bits of the episodes, some of the funniest ones, maybe the most insightful, be sure to check out our clips accounts. We post clips on TikTok, on Instagram, and if you're watching on YouTube, we have shorts on YouTube as well. So go, feel free to check those out. All of those accounts are at CatFiveBoys, so make sure to go check those out. Drop comments, drop likes on them. Hopefully you enjoy. I'm definitely going to work on getting some more clips out soon, very, very soon, for the clips accounts. If you want to be a guest on the show, like Luke is today, I'm so sorry, I forgot his name for a second. If you want to be a guest on the show, like Luke is today, and you want to talk about some of the things that maybe you disagree with something that I say. Maybe you disagree with the fact that I think women shouldn't vote. Or maybe you disagree with Maddie being a simp. Or maybe you disagree with George, saying that he hates fat people. Who knows what you disagree with. Maybe you want to debate about something. Feel free to DM us on Instagram at CatFiveBoys, letting us know that you're interested in being on the show. And giving us a little bit of a bio about yourself. Maybe your name, your age, whatever the case, you're interested in being on the show, and we will get you on ASAP. I stream every single Saturday.
I feel like I got to DM you. I feel like I got to DM you right now. You say women can't vote?
Oh, we'll definitely touch on that. We'll definitely touch on that later on in the show for sure, if that's something you disagree with.
I need to lodge my objection, and then we can come back to it later.
Well, yeah, we definitely will. That's going to be an interesting conversation. That's definitely a reason for everybody right now who's listening to this to stay for the rest of the show, because that's going to be an interesting one. But anyways, I do stream every single Saturday at 6 p.m. Usually I go on there and I do TikTok invasion. So I basically go on TikTok and I go on people's lives who want to debate, and I join their lives and I start debating them and destroying, absolutely dismantling their worldviews and replacing it with something much better. Much better. So if you want to go check that out, feel free to do so. I also play games on there. Sometimes I play Wordle, crosswords. We have a good time, So if you want to go check that out, check out the stream every single Saturday at 6 p.m. at Codename Soap. The link to that will be in the description down below. We sell things. I don't like to call it merch, but we do. I'm a Catholic, and I'm very passionate about my faith and my devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And I have rosaries that I sell. And I have that store in the link in the description as well. She came, one of the strongest weapons that she provided to us, the rosary, and I want to spread it to the world. If you can't buy it, if you don't want to buy it, I completely understand. Just give the store a little look, give it a little, check it out, and that would be greatly appreciated just by you checking it out. Again, we got rosaries there. We have different types as well. We have wrist rosaries, bracelets. We have single decade rosaries. We have full necklace style rosaries. If you want to go check those out. And we also are going to put shirts on there soon. So I suppose it's kind of a merch store, but I don't like to call it that because, rosaries are a little bit more important than just merch. But either way, if you want to check it out, the link to that will be in the description down below. Just to give you guys a little bit of a heads up for things that are coming in the future for the CatFiveBoys, we have Luke today. Obviously, today's gonna be a really good episode. We have Luke, a lot of good things to talk about. And then next Tuesday we have another guest coming on. I don't want to spoil it too much. And then on Thursday next week we have a debate between two former guests of the show. Stephanie, Kendall, and Aubrey Kana, two very good guests that we had on, two entertaining episodes, and they disagree with each other in a lot of things. I'm not going to say all the prompts because then it's going to kind of give it away. It's going to kind of ruin the surprise, but I will say some of the more, or I'll tell you guys one just to keep you guys in kind of a suspense, but to get you excited for the debate coming up between the both of them. It's going to be an interesting debate, a very fun one. The prompt is, should trans women be allowed to participate in women's sports? So obviously there's more prompts where that came from, but that's just the one I'm going to give you guys, a little bone, just so you guys can chew on and get you excited for the full course meal. That's coming Thursday of next week, so be aware of that. And then tomorrow, Friday, we couldn't do it yesterday because of some issues. We had to postpone it, but tomorrow, hopefully, Maddie and I are going to be doing a appearance on Stephanie Kendall's show from Dirt We Grow. So hopefully that's going to be good. We're going to be talking about the political parties and the reasons they exist and their moral values and their the morality and between each and the values, I suppose, between each and every one of them. Yeah, that should be fun as well. With that said, please make sure to like, comment. Oh, what was that? I heard a noise. Anyways, make sure to like, make sure to comment. We love the comments. Keep them flowing. Buddy, can you hear me? Oh my goodness, I don't know what happened. I think
He's back.
I don't know what happened, but the show, or rather the recording was hearing me, so I guess I'll just continue. Make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Drop us a 5-star rating on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Drop as many comments as you guys want. We love the comments. If you want to drop, full stories, something funny that happened, a funny dating story, an embarrassing story, a scary story, we will read it during the Reddit thread section of the show. With that being said, we post every single Wednesdays and Fridays. Let's get right into the show. Maddie, how has everything been going since the last episode that we recorded, which was 2 days ago, actually? How has everything been since then, buddy? Or actually, you know what? Sorry, good, but sorry to interrupt you. Before we get to that, actually, you know what? I'm doing this all wrong. Luke, sir, let's start with you first. Feel free. What am I saying? I don't know what's going on with me today. Luke, give me your age, your name, your location, your occupation, and a little bit about yourself. Talk to the people.
Okay, I can give you my social security number too if you need it, but we don't, maybe not.
Credit card information, maybe?
Yeah, Luke. Yeah, exactly. My mother's maiden name as well.
That's good. That's good.
We'll get on. Yeah. But yeah, so Luke McGinty. I'm up in New York. I was just talking to the guys before we get recording. I just moved back here from Florida. I'm a New Yorker originally, but I was down in Florida for about a year and a half. A little bit about me. I mean, this is I think it's my first time going on someone else's podcast. I've done 3 or 4, kind of do 3 or 4 of them, and then you kind of give up. So I saw you guys have done like 20 some out of these. So you're doing something right. You're sticking with it, which is that's the hardest part. Honestly,
we are honored to have you on as the first show that you do. We're honored.
Yeah, well, let's see how it goes. It should be an interesting time.
It definitely will, especially since we got a little bit of we already have a little bit of a disagreement from the beginning, which is the women shouldn't vote thing. So that's going to be interesting to touch on for sure, and should be a good time. You said your age was what again? I apologize.
I am 29 years old.
29. Okay, damn, you have a very mature voice for a 29-year-old. I don't know if that's just me, Maddie. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, he sounds like a man, so yeah, I guess.
He's trying not to big me up too much. That's
yeah, he's trying to keep you humble. But yeah, no, besides, so you said you're 29 years old. Since this show is not going to really go into the kind of the relationship section of the show, we're not going to go through that. Maddie, give your age, your name, your location, occupation, and buddy, a little bit about yourself. How's everything been since the last episode?
Sure thing. For the people who are new here, and again for the people who stay with us and watch our shows, my name is Maddie. I'm 24 years old. I'm single. I live in South Florida. And life is going good, bro. I can't really complain. Had a good work week. Work is going good. Everything in life with my friends and personally is going good. So I can't really complain. Everything in life is really swell. and I'm blessed to have another day.
But yeah, it's good to hear. Um, my name is Matt. I am the host of the CatFiveBoys podcast, and I'm 21 years old. What else? What else? What else? And life's been going good ever since the last show. Obviously, we have big news today. We have a new pope, ladies and gentlemen. Pope Leo the 14th, the very first American pope in the history of the church. And it's a big day. It's a big day for the Catholic Church, for Catholics around the world, and not only for Catholics but for the world in general. Let's see what this pope will do, and kind of his pontificate, what the effects of that will have in the world stage and whatnot. But yeah, I'm very, very grateful to God to be alive today and to be able to do another one of these episodes with another phenomenal guest. We have Luke today, so we should have a great show. But again, thank the Lord for the life He's provided me with and this opportunity to do the show here. But everything's been good so far, and yeah, let's have a good show today, guys. I don't know if there's anything before we get started with the Reddit threads. I don't know if there's anything that anybody would like to say before we get started. I don't know if Luke, you have a question or something, or Maddie, you have something to say.
I'm curious. I mean, I feel like off the top on the Pope. I mean, for one, I'm very excited. It's hard for me as a UNC guy. He went to Villanova, so
Oh
that's
yeah,
tough. They beat us in the national championship, and
yeah.
we at UNC we always say, the sky is Carolina blue, so God's a Tar Heel. But then I was texting my friends like, how can if the Pope went to Villanova, then how could God be a Tar Heel? So, but Leo, very strong name in my opinion. I think that's a very strong name for Pope.
Oh, for sure. Pope Leo the 13th was a very, very he was a very, very I'm not gonna say strict pope, but he was a very strong pope, like like you said. So I'm assuming there's some sort of inspiration from Pope Leo the 13th to our new pope today, Pope Leo the 14th, and the choice of that name. So it's exciting, like you said, it's exciting to see what's new, what's there new to come. My voice just cracked like crazy there, but it's okay. But yeah, it's definitely exciting for sure. With that being said, let's get into the Reddit thread, or the Reddit segment of the show. Let's start with this one right here. No stupid questions is what we're going to dive into. And the post goes, will there always be war in the world? Question mark. I've started just ignoring Gaza, Palestine, Russia, Ukraine, and now India, Pakistan. I just struggle to comprehend how in the 21st century we have people dropping bombs and missiles left and right, totally uncaring for who is killed. How can people like this be in power? Is there anything to stop people doing this, forcibly being removed from power, etc.? I am mainly talking about aggression and the nations who attack others with this level of force. Very little diplomacy exists, it seems, and violence is never far away. I honestly just think humanity is lacking in most people, or they just are stupid, greedy people. Do you think humans will eventually evolve to avoid war at any cost and be more compassionate? Why do we constantly repeat the mistakes of the past? We never seem to learn anything from history. Anybody have any thoughts on that initial post here?
I'd like to let Luke go ahead and give his opinion on that first.
Sure, man. It's funny. This is bringing me back to I was an econ grad in undergrad, but I took one political science class, and it was international politics, which was super interesting. But for me, I always kind of found like the political science was just so theoretical. But the stuff that I found the most interesting was all this study of peace, right? And one of the things they talked about is there's this idea that we have what we call the long peace, which is basically that since World War II to basically up until the Ukraine war, there was no major wars between big countries. You had little stuff. You had the Vietnam War, you had the Korea War, but you didn't have any, like even the Iraq War. You didn't have like big powers killing each other. And the theory of it was that basically the U.S. was so strong, we were just so dominant that no one else wanted to mess with us. And that kind of makes sense to me. And so I guess where that leads me is like, is there just always going to be war? I mean, I kind of feel like, yeah, and maybe the alternative is something even worse. Like the only way you wouldn't have war is if you had like an absolute dictatorship where like one country just runs the whole world and does whatever they want. and they've beaten everybody else down. Because even when the U.S. when we're top dog, there's still little wars everywhere. So I think to get rid of it completely, you'd have to just demolish human nature in a way that, for me, doesn't seem productive. That's my instinct, at least.
Yeah, I think with just to kind of echo your sentiment, I think when it comes to the human nature aspect of it, free will will come with negatives, and war is one of those negatives. I mean, when you look at the idea, when you look at each of these wars that this redditor spoke about, you have Israel, Palestine, Russia, Ukraine, and India, Pakistan. All of these are differences in worldviews and differences in I suppose national necessity, quote unquote, whatever they believe they need or whatever the case. And that's just something that's human nature at the end of the day. Everybody's always going to have a different opinion about life. Everybody's always going to have a different opinion about what they need, and sometimes those, what I need might trample over what you need, and then when I trample over what you need because I need what I need, you might not like that, and you might fight back, and then that's when wars start. To have no wars would be to have no free will, and I don't think that's a good trade-off, to be honest. But will there be negative things that happen? Of course, that's life, that's human nature. But I think free will is definitely a thing that was implemented for a reason. But that's the way I see it. I don't know if anybody else.
I like you say, it's implemented.
Yes, by a higher power, of course. I'm definitely a Christian. That's the way that I see the world, for sure. Is like in the sense of I always base my worldview on Christian ethics, right? So when I talk about free will and whatnot, that's always implemented by the higher power that I believe in. And so when it comes to the free will that we have, that's a thing that's been given to us.
It's funny because when you say implemented, my brain thinks about like when I'm around like people who are like software people. You say implemented, it makes it sound like it's like a software update. But
Oh yeah,
I guess it's
when
you hear too much about AI.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of one way to see it, where it's like God has, I suppose that's kind of a way you could see it. God is a software engineer, and we are the software, and then He implements things. But that's just the kind of one way you can see it. But obviously, this is more than that, of course. That's just God has placed a necessity in our lives for us to have free will, and so that's what we have, and yeah. But that's, I don't know. Like I said, that's the way I see it in this case, at least. Will there always be war? Yeah, human nature. Maddie, what do you think about this?
Yeah, bro. There's always gonna be war, bro. It's always gonna be driven by greed and power lust, because other than that, there's really no other reason for war. Because why have a lot of the wars happened is due to uh certain nations or certain leaders or whatever being having a power lust to have more land and people under their control, in like a dictatorship type of way or a communist type of way. So they figure the more land and the more people I conquer, the more people will have to be loyal to me. And if not, either throw them in jail or, unalive them. So I feel that unfortunately there's always going to be war no matter what, because someone's always going to be like, you know what? We have 15 million people and I have 100, 200,000 people in my army. I can take over this little subcontinent or subcountry that's close to us because no one will help them. And it's just, people are always going to want more and more and more. And that's always going to bring war no matter what.
So it sounds like we all agree, which is pretty boring. I mean, should I take the devil's advocate here?
Yeah, there was one of our co-hosts, George. He's not here today. He would always do that. Sometimes he would agree with what we say, but he would take the devil's advocate just to make it more entertaining. But no, I mean it's good. It's good to have conversations even if we do agree. But we definitely will get into some stuff we don't agree on for sure. But I suppose in this case we do. One thing that kind of came to my mind too that I kind of wanted to kind of say. When it comes to the idea of free will, which is a necessary aspect of our lives, we're always going to have free will. There's no, There's no avoiding that. I guess in some way, shape, or form, you could say that, you know, war could end. There could be no more wars. I guess possibly that could happen. But free will wise, there will always be free will. That's something that's not possible for it to just be gone. At least with our abilities. And so when we look at that, something definitely that I think deserves to be mentioned is that some wars aren't bad. I think there are some wars that actually are necessary and for the greater good of, whether that be the moral paradigm of, the moral paradigm of the good side versus the bad side, quote unquote, even though most wars don't really have a good side or a bad side. But sometimes wars are necessary. Sometimes they are for the greater good of humanity or of society. And sometimes they're not. Most recent wars that we've seen have not really been for the greater good. They've kind of just been for, I'm not even going to get to that point. But there have been a lot of wars in the history of the human race that has been for the greater good, and it has been for the flourishing of society. So I think both of those things can be true. War is terrible. War is it's never good. It's never a nice thing, but sometimes it's a tool and a medium for a greater good on the other side of that. At least that's the way I see it. I don't know if anybody has any more final thoughts on this before I move on to the next one.
I guess the only thing I would say is like, and part of me is like just thinking through the devil's advocate. Part of me is I'm an optimist by nature. Like it hurts me to think that you could never get past it, right? Because I mean, like there are things that for thousands of years we all just took for granted. Like slavery was something that had existed for all of human history, and then we all kind of agreed, hey, let's stop doing this. We're better than this. And like people do change, we do grow, right? And I read this thing that it's funny, like we all just kind of collectively agreed we're not going to do human cloning. Like we totally could. We can clone animals. We grow stem cells and stuff now, but at least as to my knowledge, there's no clones walking around. So like culture does matter, norms matter. Like if people agree on stuff, and so maybe there is a world in which we have like a cataclysmic, horrific war, and we just have it. We get the shit scared out of us, and we go, "Hey guys, we need to get better than this, or we're going to kill each other." And I don't know, maybe, or we become like the elves in Tolkien, where we've like, we all live for 500 years because the genetics just gets so good, and we get so good at medicine. And it's like, if you think you're going to die at 60 or 70, okay, if you get drafted at 18 and you die for your country, whatever. But if you think like we have this amazing utopia and life is just such a precious, valuable thing, maybe we just don't think about conflict the same way. Maybe we value, okay, we can take 10 years to go have a long diplomatic discussion in a way that we're just too impatient for it now. So as much as I would agree with you, and I think I would agree with myself that like, yeah, in the current way that we are as people, I think it's really hard to imagine us getting past it. But the thing that people are good at is we change. So I'm an optimist. Maybe we could get there.
Yeah, I think just to kind of respond to what you say, I think the only way we do get there is for one side, and like let's just say it's like we got the Republicans versus the Democrats, I suppose, and they go into a big war. The only way that there would be peace is if the Republicans were to kill off every last Democrat, or if every Democrat were to kill off every last Republican. At least in peace, as much as they would see it, I suppose. Or maybe not every last one, but for the majority of them, to the point where they'd be able to beat the others into submission. I think that's kind of how it would work for every other civilization. So, like for example, when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, the only way that there would be peace in that sense, for the rest of the human history, would be for every Ukrainian to die, or until there's so little of them that they're all easily submitted, or the opposite, whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's just, I don't know, that's just the way I see it. Not necessarily saying that I'm not an optimist. I think human beings have a capability and a capacity for such good and such beauty in their character and their nature. We're all endowed with the Holy Spirit within us, and we have capability for such beauty. And I think that our pride or our things that we believe to be necessities in our lives, which a lot of the time are just pleasures, take over that. But I think we do have the capability of doing that for sure. But either way, with that being said, let's move on to the next Reddit post here. Sorry guys, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty here. This is not good. Give me one moment. Give me one moment, ladies and gentlemen. We are having technical difficulties. Gentlemen, I apologize. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi right now, guys. It's gonna be a rocky road for the rest of the show. Luke, are you still there, dude?
I'm here. I'm here.
All right, perfect. Yeah, my Wi-Fi it's not working very well with me right now, but hopefully we'll be able to power through the entire show. So where were we? We were in the Reddit post. Let us get into the Reddit post finally. Let's just do it.
Yes, you're about to read the new one.
Yeah, let's just do it. Here we go. Am I the asshole for taking my mom on a beach getaway while my father was in rehab? Sorry, I already read that. Hi, I'm 21-year-old female. I recently took my mom, 42 female, and my younger brother, 14 male, on a beach getaway for a week after my father, 49 male, was admitted into rehab for alcohol abuse. My father has been a chronic alcoholic for years and has repeatedly gone in and out of rehab. Over time, my mom, who was a sweet and innocent woman who used to love traveling, stopped going out altogether because of him. He often suspected her of having an affair and would control her movements, preventing her from leaving the house. My mom complied with his controlling behavior, simply wanting the emotional abuse to end. My childhood wasn't exactly pleasant either, and I don't want my brother to go through the same thing. I want to give him the best possible life, and I'll do whatever it takes to make him happy. As for my mom, I love her deeply, and I wanted to give her a break from the years of tension and confinement. So as soon as my father was taken to rehab, I booked the tickets and made the reservations for a beach vacation. Honestly, it was wonderful. It felt peaceful without my father there, and I was just happy to see my mom and brother enjoying themselves for once. Being the eldest, I take full responsibility for my family and I'm committed to doing my best for them. But when relatives and family friends found out about the trip, they started criticizing me, calling me shameless and insensitive. Some even blamed my mother, saying she didn't raise her children properly. What started as a relaxing getaway has now turned into a mental burden because of these hurtful comments. I'm left questioning myself. Was I wrong? Am I really that insensitive and careless? The opinions and judgments from others have made me doubt my intentions, even though I genuinely meant well. Edit. I'm truly overwhelmed by the responses I received. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you for your kind and thoughtful comments. I just want to clarify that the remarks and taunts I mentioned came from relatives on both my father and my mother's side. The one thing they all seemed to agree on was that what I did was just not right. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if any of you guys. Let's start with you, Maddie. What are your initial thoughts on this post?
I mean, like I got to understand this person's point of view. Like why they did what they did. But I also understand that there's obviously an issue with the father having to go to rehab. So there's already that type of dilemma. But we weren't given a full backstory as to how him having to go to rehab has affected the family, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and everything. So, you know, we don't know if we don't know the level of severity that it's at, right? And this person being the eldest child, I fully understand the responsibility. when there's something going wrong within your family and you're the eldest child, you know, it's your responsibility, you know, by it's not wanted, it's given to you. It's just it's damn, well, how am I trying to word this? It's burdened. Yeah, that's what it is. You're burdened with that responsibility to have to, grow up and be the adult and make the decisions that best benefits those of the family that aren't struggling with whatever type of situation you're going through. So I can fully understand this person. They're trying to make the best of a situation and they're trying to have an escape because maybe that vacation can save, the mental state of their mother and their siblings or whatever. So I can fully understand that. But at the same time, no matter what, if someone tries to do anything in their life that is for their better and for the better of someone that they care about, they're always going to get shit for it. So it doesn't matter. So this is kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation. But hey, at least this person took the initiative and did what they had to help, their mother. And I don't remember if they said siblings too, but their siblings have a a break from everything to be able to refresh, reset, and prepare themselves for whatever lies ahead.
Sorry, I was on mute there. I would probably say that the the I how would I word this? The intention was nice. She was trying to do a nice thing. I get it. Um, but kind of the whole mindset behind it of seeing your dad as the villain and your mom was this super innocent woman who was um, what's the word? She was just kind of being held down and abused emotionally, which emotional abuse is very subjective, to be honest. And it sounds like she's using her subjective sense to kind of tell us what she believes to emotional abuse to be. This kind of attitude to have is kind of just that's what kind of makes it insensitive. It's like, to a certain degree, you're kind of spiting your father. It's like, in spite of you, we're gonna go have fun because she never could have fun under you, under your control, or whatever the case. Which is again just kind of a bad mindset to have, considering she is his wife and she has a responsibility towards him as he does to her. Is he failing even if he's failing in his responsibility, that doesn't stop her from needing to fulfill hers. But to say that this is uh, controlling and this is some sort of uh, of abuse or whatever the case, it's definitely not. But either way, that's my thoughts. Chris. Oh my goodness, Luke. What are your thoughts on this, sir? Luke, you there, man?
He's on mute.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I was trying to interrupt you, so that's funny.
Oh, that's
I
look at
I
that.
seem more polite now because I was on mute. Um,
You definitely do seem
so
more polite, yeah.
what if he is controlling? You're like, I hardly recognize you. Um, what if he is controlling? What if he is abusive? I mean, does that change your opinion at all?
Like I said, when it comes to abuse and control, a lot of that stuff is very subjective. What you would consider to be abuse, I might not consider to be abuse, at least in this regard. I mean, when you talk about physical abuse, it's a little bit of a different story because it's a pretty good standard to kind of say that if you punch your wife, it's pretty abuse. That's abusive. But when it comes to emotional abuse, that could be
Yeah,
a
but
whole wide
if you
range of
punch your
things.
wife, you should go to jail.
If you punch your wife, well,
Yeah.
that's also kind of
I don't know.
that also depends, low key. That also depends. That it
What
could
do you
be.
mean? I
I
think if
mean,
you punch anybody, I mean, you
yeah,
if two people want to get in a fight, then that's different. But like,
that's what I'm saying.
generally
A
speaking,
lot,
if you assault somebody, you should go to jail.
a lot of the time when we see DV cases happen between two adults, it's usually like a mutual thing. It's not like one sided. Usually, it's both of the people kind of aggressing each other in certain ways. So in that regard, if it's just like I said, if a husband comes home and he's coming home from work and he holds his wife by the neck and punches her in the face, that's a different story. I mean, obviously that's abuse. But when it comes to emotional abuse, there's a really, really high threshold for when it comes to what's subjective about that, you know?
I mean, I guess you're right that like, so is there subjectivity with what is like quote unquote emotional abuse? Sure. I'll be honest, it makes me a little uncomfortable to hear you say like, to kind of equivocate about sort of assault, where like there's a lot of domestic assault that happens, in the world. And is there sometimes when, someone like, okay, in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, right? She's hitting him, he's hitting her. The difference as a man that you have to know is that, like you don't have to, you don't, you're just, I'm a big guy. I don't know you guys, but you're probably big guys too. Like it's just different. You got to treat people differently. And so like, as a man, I think, like it's the worst thing you can possibly do is to hit a woman. And then I think also concurrent with that, like the worst thing, maybe the second worst thing after that is that you could, scare a woman, to put fear in a woman that you're going to hit her. And I think that is the thing here. I mean, and it's interesting. I appreciate you sort of even laying out the case of why the guy could be the asshole in the Reddit comment, to get back to that, because I look at it as like at the end of the day, a, a lot of people would think of alcoholism as a mental disorder, right? It's a disease, right? And so, if you put it in that perspective, where like someone's in the hospital with a disease, if you just take the alcoholism, the abuse out of it, um, should you be there for the person or should you be on vacation? I guess it sounds bad to go on vacation, but also then if it's, someone's in a coma, right? They've been in a car accident, they're going to be in the hospital for months. Maybe it's important as the, leader in the family to say, hey, I need to take care of the people I can take care of. I got to control the things I can control. Um, and like, I'm going to be there for my dad when he needs me and when I can try and help him to get his shit straight. But at the end of the day, I got to take care of my mom. I got to take care of my siblings. I've like, for me, that's what being a man is like, knowing what you can control, knowing what you can't. And if someone else is going to be, you can call it abuse, you can call it emotionally manipulative. That's that's in their control. You as a man, you can control making sure the people you love are taken care of, and then when your dad is out, you can help him take care of himself and get better. But it's, I think it's your job to try and help people manage their situation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think especially as the older sibling, the eldest sibling, it definitely could fall on your shoulders to kind of take care of your younger siblings, take care of your parents. That's kind of the thing that falls on the oldest a lot of the time. But I think just the way that she worded it in the post, it was kind of like he was just so abusive, and he never let her have fun, and she stopped living life because of him. So now I'm gonna take her out because she doesn't need to deal with that no more. It's just the kind of like if she would have said something along the lines of, they're stressed out right now because of everything that's happening with my dad, and I kind of just want to take him out and kind of give him a little bit of time to unwind and just relax. You know what I mean? I would understand. I would understand a little more. But just kind of the way she worded it just sounded very vindictive, very kind of spiteful in a way. But that's just, like I said, that's just kind of the way I see it when it comes to that. And again, it's just the whole idea of oh, he was emotionally abusive, he was controlling and whatnot. Everybody, when you get into a relationship, when you get into a marriage, you have responsibilities to one another. That's for the better or the worse, whatever the case may be. Regardless of how bad it is or how good it is, you have a responsibility, and if the other person's not, I suppose, adhering to that responsibility, that doesn't take your responsibility away either. We all have our job to do. We all have our role in a relationship, in a marriage, and that you just gotta be there for your partner. But that's the way I see it, at least.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your perspective.
Yeah, and when it comes to the whole abuse thing, look, I'm not saying. I just want to clear this up a little bit. I'm not saying that physical abuse of any kind is okay on either side, whether that be physical abuse from a woman to a man or from a man to a woman. But I will say, when it comes to the instances of DV, it's not always black and white for the most part. Usually, it's not. Usually, there are there are multiple aggressors. There are sometimes things that lead up to this apex moment that kind of takes the the spotlight from everything else that happened before that. And while there is a differential in force between men and women, and men should kind of learn how to control that, I think women need to also learn how to control their own emotions and their own selves, to understand that you're going against a man, and that's not really going to end well for you if the man decides that, you know what, I'm done holding back. So I think it's responsibility
Damn,
on
dude.
yeah, I think it's responsibility on both sides. At the end of the day, I think that it's the same thing as like saying, if a
That's
guy
pretty
comes,
brutal.
no, I mean, life is brutal at the end of the day, but I think it's kind of like the same thing when if a guy comes up to me, I'm like, let's say I'm a 6'5" dude, and a 5'4" guy comes up to me and punches me in the stomach or something. I don't have recourse to hit him back. It's like, of course I do, even though that guy is much smaller than me and maybe has a way less chance of beating
Well,
me in a fight.
well, yeah,
I'm Now go ahead. Go ahead.
well, yeah. So, but is there a difference, right, between like if someone comes and hits me? If someone comes and hits me, yeah, I got a right to defend myself. If someone breaks into my house, it doesn't matter if the guy's half my size. I'm gonna beat the shit out of him. But like, there's a difference between that and like, I'm at the deli and someone starts talking shit. Like, if I lay them out, like, yeah, some people might think I'm in the right, but like at the end of the day, like, it's my job as a person in society to put up with other people's bullshit. Um, and like, let me just clarify one thing too. Like, I do think there's a lot of stuff where, emotional abuse is a real thing. It's a real thing when men do it to women. It's a real thing when women do it to men. And so there is such a thing as a woman being cruel and being manipulative and gaslighting a guy. That does happen. There's also, I know plenty of guys who are very manipulative and who gaslight and who, I go, man, I would not like to. I feel bad for, a girl has to date these guys because they're real. Um, and so I guess that's what makes me uncomfortable about it is like I think when I was younger. I think it was easy for me to go, oh, how real is this? How real is that? And like, as I've gotten older, I think how old, I'm 29. I'm not that old, but like, I've just run into enough assholes in my life that like, I've stopped. I've gotten a lot more comfortable making a moral judgment about like, no, there are bad people. There are assholes. There are people who like beat their wives, and I know people who are in that situation, and it's terrifying, and it's really traumatic. And initially, my brain just can't even clock it because you know when I was younger, I didn't grow up around you know, violent or manipulative or cruel people. And even like in the workplace, you encounter people who like, no, they're just selfish. They're just greedy. Um, and I guess it's just like, you know, I think people just have to be really clear about like, no, I don't think it is ever okay to hit anybody really, unless it is in self defense. Like, and it's even we were talking about war before, right? Like, is there such a thing as a just war? Yeah, if you're beating the Nazis, that's a good thing. But if you're punching Canada, I don't think that's a good thing. So it's maybe just equivocating randomly, but I feel like it's really important to be clear about what isn't and what is okay. Yeah.
Goodness gracious, I was muted the whole time. But anyways, as a 6'5" guy, if I'm able to and I'm
Oh no,
allowed,
I heard you.
no, it's on the recording. I was muted, but yeah, either way, as a 6'5" guy, if I'm able and I'm allowed and it's okay for me to defend myself against somebody who's 5'4", a dude who's 5'4" who's hitting me in the stomach or punching me or whatever the case may be, and I'm allowed to lay him out. I think it should be the same case when it comes to women. Like I said, I think women need to learn how to keep their hands to themselves, and things won't go south that way, But like I said before, it was just kind of the idea that things aren't so black and white when it comes to DV cases. a lot of the time. Sometimes guys actually are assholes, and sometimes guys are way more assholes where it's just they're coming home to punch, like Theo Vaughn said that one time. But they're punching, you know what I mean, and they're hitting, and they're no aggravation at all. They're just hitting because they want to, and it makes them feel good or whatever the case. I think those people are terrible, absolute, just demented human beings. But there are, for the most part, majority of the cases, it's mutual in the aggression. And yeah, like I said, if women don't want to, like, I don't know, if women just kind of took a moment to think, this guy, I'm going against a man right now. If he really decided that he didn't want to hold back, I'm done for. You know what I mean? So I need to learn my place in the hierarchy of power, I suppose. Not to say that that should be used against women, but there's always that possibility.
I guess, and like, we don't need to talk about this forever, but like, I guess to clarify, like, if a girl walks up to me and she's pissed off, right, and she like shoves me in the chest, that might piss me off. I don't like when people put their hands on me. That would annoy me, right? It's normal that would piss me off. But there's a huge difference between a woman who is 80 pounds less than I am walking up and shoving me in the chest, like, I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you said that. And me kind of stepping back a little bit and like, okay, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed. I'm pissed off. Like, and there's a difference between that and me as a man and shoving a woman and she falls to the ground or she hits the wall. And like, I feel like that's the reason I'm kind of pushing a little bit, is like, I feel like you're doing like, they got to know what they're doing. I'm like, yeah, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility as a man to know what you're doing and to know that, like, hey, I can't do this because it's not equal. It's not. And it's just a fact of life that if you push a woman, it's going to be different than if a woman pushes you. I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of just push back a little bit and say, what if she were to slap you? Like, what if a 80-pound girl were to come up to you and slap you in the face? Would that kind of change things? Would you probably maybe put your hands on her in a little more of a severe way just to kind of get her away from you? What if she followed that up with another slap afterwards? Because women like to slap a lot.
If I need to hold her back, and I think this is the thing, right? Is it's at the end of the day, it's like, for me, my pride and my strength is knowing it just doesn't bother me. Like, and this could be taken out of context, but it's the same thing. Like, if a kid, like, I was at a bar with my parents, and this kid kind of comes over and he's like, we're just chatting because he's a kid and his parents are there, and he kind of is like, his pants are all dirty. I'm like, oh, you run around in the dirt, and he's like, oh, your pants are clean, and he like throws dirt at my pants, and you kind of laugh a little bit, haha, whatever, and then he did it again. And I was like, and he did it like 2 or 3 times. And I kind of got up because I had to go to the bathroom, whatever. But, it starts to piss you off. But I'm not going to shove this kid in the dirt. Like, if it was a grown man, then I'd be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You can't throw dirt at me. But he's a 4-year-old kid. And like, it's just that idea that, like, as a person in the world, you have to be aware of the fact that doing one thing in one situation is different. And like, that's the beauty and the difficulty of being a man, right? Is that, like, we're strong, we're durable. I can get punched in the face, I'll be okay. And like, I remember I was watching the Olympics with my girlfriend, and we were watching boxing. It happened to be that the women's boxing was first. And she's like, oh, I really don't like boxing. I don't like boxing. I'm like, oh, we'll just watch a little bit. It's fine. And we watched 2 or 3 of these fights. And they start with like the welterweights or the featherweight women, whatever it is, the smallest one. And these women were like 90 pounds punching each other. And it's so, as a man, it kind of is almost like ridiculous. I sound like an asshole, but it's like, there's these 90-pound women punching each other for 10 minutes. And by the end, they're just winded. They're not even hurt. And then they slowly move up the weight class to the women who are like 140 pounds and 150 pounds. And they can kind of hit each other. And my girlfriend's like, oh, this is kind of fun. It's very motivational. And then they jumped to the men's after that. And they started with the men who were 160. And immediately there was a huge difference. We're like, they're just throwing punches. And after 2 minutes, these guys are bleeding. And then you go to the 200-pound guys, and it's like, they're just killing each other. And my girlfriend immediately goes, oh, this is scary. And it's like, yeah, it is scary because dudes can kill each other. I don't think there are a lot of women boxers. And sure, could Ronda Rousey knock somebody out? Sure. But I don't think there are a lot of women boxers who are at risk of killing each other. I think there's a lot of men who are. And that is a real difference. It's just a fact of nature.
No, 100%. And I think that's exactly why women should take responsibility and not put their hands on men, and then they wouldn't have to worry about that type of stuff. I think there's a difference between saying men shouldn't do this thing versus it's wrong for men to do this thing. Because like I said, it would be the same idea as like, you know, like I said, if a 5'4" guy who's like 90 pounds were to come up to me and hit me in the chest or something, like, or push me in the chest or something like that, I think nobody would really bat an eye if the bigger guy were to knock him out, because, you know, at the end of the day, he put his hands on the other guy, and in this case, it'd be two men there. But what if a woman of this exact same strength level as that 5'4" guy were to do the same thing to the bigger guy, and the guy did the same thing to the woman? I think it'd be looked at a little differently because of the simple fact of the genders. But I think at the end of the day, aggression is aggression, and self-defense is self-defense. And I, you know, at that point, it's kind of just taking responsibility away from the women and kind of infantilizing them, which kind of goes to show as to why you made that comparison with the kid. It kind of goes to my point where it's, you know, when it comes to the children, you said this yourself.
Yeah.
He's 4 years old at the end of the day.
I was uncomfortable making it for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's 4 years old at the end of the day, because, you know, it kind of goes to my point. The difference between a child and a woman is that children don't really have agency like that. You know, a 4-year-old kid, he doesn't really truly know what he's doing. He's kind of just doing things because it's fun, or maybe he finds it funny or something, or whatever the case, and he doesn't know any better. But that woman definitely does know much better. And I think when we kind of say, oh, men should not, you know, should be more responsible and not hit back, it's kind of taking the responsibility away from the women who initiate these different instances where they do get hit by men, when it could have completely been avoided if she would have just not put her hands on him. But yeah, I suppose that's kind of my last thing on it. But
Well,
but you can. But yeah,
the
you can
last thing
respond
I'll
if you'd
say,
like.
just because I mentioned you. Well, just because you've mentioned, you know, religion and all this stuff, and like I was raised as a casual Catholic, and I've gotten a lot more into it recently, just for various reasons. And you know, like it's funny how often when you're reading the Bible and you encounter a phrase that is actually just like a thing that people say, and you didn't even realize it comes from Jesus saying it on a hill somewhere. And he goes, "Turn the other cheek." Like, to be a good Christian, and then as a Christian to be a good person, is that like it's your job to actually be the better person. And it's like how do you square that idea with then the idea of like, yeah, but you know, the women need to know what they're doing when they put this guy in this situation where they know what he's going to do. And like instinctively, just morally, my brain goes, yeah, but the guy knows that if he does this, it's so much more disastrous and destructive than anything that woman is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer to your question about the verse "turn the other cheek," I think in the context of what Jesus was speaking about when he was doing the Sermon of the on the Mount, it was eye for an eye thing. So it was in the sense of when somebody does something against you, you are to do. It's like an eye for an eye. You know, you are to do the same thing right back to them the exact same way. And he was saying, you know, be the bigger person. You know, kind of just let it go type thing if you can avoid it. But when it comes to self-defense, it's a little bit of a different thing, where, you know, at the end of the day, if you're being attacked by somebody, or there's some sort of threat to your safety or your bodily safety in any way, I think there's a responsibility for you to protect yourself in the body that God has provided for you. And, you know, I think when it comes to that simple instance of a man and a woman puts her hands on a man in some way, shape, or form, and then the man defends himself, and maybe she gets hurt because of it, or whatever the case. I feel like Jesus would come, if he were to come down, he'd be like, yeah, I think neither of you should have been in that situation, but the woman shouldn't have put her hands on him. But I mean, I'm not even gonna start saying what Jesus would say, or whatever the case may be. But when it comes to that, you know, turn the other cheek, it's definitely not telling you that you should be able to just get hit and just take it, you know, because you're a man and you should be the bigger person and just take the punches to the face. It's like, no, if a woman is punching me in the face, I'm gonna punch her right back in the chest or the stomach or whatever I can hit, and she'll feel it and she'll definitely stop. Now, whether I go on top of her and I start fucking pummeling her, left and right, now that's definitely different. But just the same way I would kind of stop some dude from attacking me, is the same way I would stop a woman from attacking me. You know, at the end of the day, it's neutralizing the threat versus completely destroying whatever it is that's coming my way. But you know, I think turn the other cheek, it definitely doesn't say, you know, just take it type thing, you know, which a lot of people kind of take that.
Well, I appreciate you going back and forth with me.
No, that's what. Of course, that's what.
I appreciate you going back and forth with me, because it's not something I've heard somebody put into words that way before. So it's interesting to, you know, hear someone's perspective on it.
No,
well,
100%.
yeah, Matt's really looking forward for the day a girl puts his hands on him so he could go full caveman.
I'm not gonna lie to you. They're
Maddie, I was
actually
gonna ask your opinion, but I feel like we're going on too long.
uh yeah. I mean,
What happened?
100%, Maddie. No, he was asking your opinion on this topic. I will
I
say one more
mean,
thing before we get into Maddie's
shit, bro.
opinion. Just one last thing. A woman did put her hands on me one time, and she doesn't have hands anymore. So, Maddie, you can go ahead, continue.
This fucking guy. Nah, bro. I
I'm
mean,
just kidding.
I,
I'm just kidding.
I have been in the situation.
I know,
Um,
I know.
I have been in the situation where a woman put her hands on me. Um, and I didn't really have to restrain myself because I already know. Like if a dude, no matter his size, puts his hands on me, I don't give a fuck. He's gonna get laid out right then and there,
Mm,
right? But when I was getting hit by a girl, I didn't even have to think twice about not hitting her because I already know. One, I'm a pretty strong dude, I am. So I know if I were to hit a woman, regardless of her size or whatever, that one hit is gonna do a lot of damage. I already know that. But at the end of the day, there's also about self control. But I do agree
mm,
with Matthew, where he says, as a man, just because we're a man, we shouldn't have to take hits from a woman or take it from a woman. But at the same time, it's also about self control because as a man, like we've said before in other episodes, and as guys, we know we are physically stronger than women. Our bones are denser, our muscles are stronger, they're bigger, we're able to withstand more stress, like physical stress and pain than women. Like if a girl 5'5", 180 pounds punches me in the face, okay, whatever. If a dude does it, it's gonna hurt. Same dude, 5'5", 180 pounds, it's gonna hurt from the dude. The girl, it'll be whatever. So I already know that as a man, regardless of your size, you should always have self control, especially when it comes to hitting a woman. Hey, bro, just maybe the only thing I would condone if she continues, bro, push her back, push.
yeah, yeah,
Don't treat her like she's a full on dude. Like don't swing on her, don't punch her, don't slap her, don't kick her. Just push her, push her away. She continues. Hey, bro, just try to get as far away as you possibly can. But I don't really think a man should really be go to get to the point where he's gonna, fucking just go full Conor McGregor on this girl because I'm pretty sure anybody could take it. But at the end of the day, yes, defend yourself. If it happens with a woman,
mm,
she puts her hands on you, go ahead, push her back. But
yeah. I would
never
agree.
resort to just giving her a straight uppercut or a right hook just because she did that shit to you.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about you gotta not be dating crazy women, right?
Yeah, don't go clubbing.
I
A lot
mean,
of these
even that,
bitches
bro.
like to go there.
People. Not even that, bro. You never know how somebody
Yeah,
releases their anger, if they're either a shit talker or if they're a physical person. Regardless, just say fuck it, go away, walk away, leave, do what you got to do, because at the end of the day, put your hands on somebody in today's society, bro, you're gonna end up in jail, probably lose your job, this and that, and it ain't worth it, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it's just differences of opinion, I guess, in this case. But I think to a certain degree, it does take away responsibility from the woman. But that being said, let's move on to let's do one more Reddit post, and then we'll move on to the topics at hand, I suppose. Um, we're already kind of an hour into the show, so let's do one more Reddit post, and then we'll move on. All right, here we go. Am I the asshole for not supporting my husband getting a second job? My husband, 45 male, and I, 32 female, live in a fairly nice house, 4 bedroom, 4 bath, with his 3 children. Fucking fairly nice. What the hell? 4 bedroom, 4 bath. With his 3 children, 15, 13, and 9, in a very nice neighborhood with HCOL. I don't know what the fuck that means. He works full time. I stay home. He has always said that he can support us fully, but if I ever felt like working for myself, that he would support my decision to do that as well. He makes very, very, very good money, which is good since all the kids go to private school and we travel quite often. We live a comfortable lifestyle. I have taken a lot on the parenting duties in our home. He has a flexible schedule but is on call 24/7 even on vacation. If I were to get a job, I wouldn't be able to do a lot of what I am doing right now for the kids. Pickups, drop-offs to extracurriculars, taking care of them during the day for holiday breaks, etc. Nor would we be able to travel as much because it's unlikely I would be able to find a job with that type of flexibility. Also, my earning potential isn't enough to really make a huge difference in our lifestyle. My husband was offered a second job within the same company doing the same thing that he is already doing but at another location near our house. While conveniently located, he would essentially have twice the amount of work. We talked about it, and I didn't really want him to take it because I knew how much work it would be, because it's a turnaround job. It would take a lot of time away from our family, and honestly, I like spending time with him and already feel that it's hard to get one-on-one time as it is. He agreed and said that he felt the same, but he was leaning towards no, and that he didn't think that the company was willing to pay what he was worth for him to put in all that extra work anyways. The conversation came up multiple times for about 6 months. One day, he informs me that he said yes to the job and that he officially starts next month. They are not paying him more than they initially offered. He started doing work for the new job immediately to get everything prepared for the start date, even though he wouldn't be getting paid for any of the work until the official start date. I was pretty upset that he took it. We got in an argument because he said I should be grateful that he was willing to make this sacrifice for our family, that he was going to be working twice as much and twice as hard, and he didn't need to come home to a resentful wife when he was providing for me and the kids. Am I the asshole for not being more supportive of him taking this job? We'll start with Luke. Luke, what do you think about this? Any initial thoughts?
So I don't know. My instinct is, you know, if you're in a relationship, you got to kind of talk about these things. And so if you talked about it and she kind of said no, that don't do this, and then you go behind your back and you do it, but that's kind of fucked up. I mean, it's not like a huge fuck up, but you're gonna get yelled at. That's what's gonna happen. Um, if you then make the argument, it's like, oh, it's about money. I want to do this for you, for the kids. Then yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense. Um, I don't know if the rationale matters, or if he's thinking, oh, this is important for my career, and I long term it's important. But like at the end of the day, you got to communicate, right? You got to let your partner know what you feel, what's important to you, and then try and hash it out. And then if at a certain point you need to disagree and you're going to go your own way, then do it. But it's like you got to be open with somebody. If you're building a life with someone, you got to be open with them.
Yeah, I'd probably, I'd probably, I think there's a little bit of a opportunity for disagreement here. Um, I don't think he actually has a responsibility to tell her anything. I think if he decides that he's gonna take this second job, then she needs to just suck it up and and support his decision, even if she disagrees. And now if she, she can ask for a conversation, be like, hey, I was wondering if we could have a conversation about it. I feel like, I'm not really, I don't really agree with it, and he's willing to have that conversation, and sure, why not? But I think if he's providing and he's there, even in a secular relationship, but I think I'm kind of saying this in the realm of a Christian marriage. If he's providing and he has kids, he's providing for you and whatnot. His say, whatever he says goes. At the end of the day, you have to submit to his authority, and that comes with him making decisions that you might not like. And at the end of the day, the decision is final, and he's the one with the final say for that. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Maddie, what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, from the situation, I'm kind of like 50-50 between it, because I could understand her point of view, because if he gets a second job, he's gonna have less time for her and the kids, which obviously that's important. Um, obviously for the family. Um, so I can understand why she'd be upset over that, because you obviously less time, and he's gonna be more exhausted, so he's not gonna want to do things and go out and shit like that. But at the same time, you know, he's working hard enough for her to not have to work and providing for
Mhm.
the 3 kids and a house where she doesn't have to wear anything. And she says he makes good money now. Like she says, she's taking them on trips all the time. They have a big house. All kids are in private school. 3 kids in private school. That right there's a lot of money already on top of the house. So I'm pretty sure she drives freaking an Escalade or, Porsche SUV and all this stuff. So that's kind of like when you were reading it, like what went into my head a little bit was, oh, I'm not gonna have time to go on vacation anymore because now he's gonna be working. That's kind of what went into my head a little bit because she's worried about not being able to go on as many trips as currently. But at the same time, I could understand her being upset at him when she said that he was working and wasn't gonna get paid until it became official. I don't give a shit how much he's getting paid from the first job or the first section of his job. I don't give a shit if you give me $10 million a day. I don't work for free. I don't give a fuck. So I can understand
Mhm.
her being upset about that part too, because hey, work ain't free. Even if it's the easiest thing in the world, work ain't free and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like 50-50 also because he should have, had more communication and talked to her about it. At least say, let me give it a trial run for a couple of months and see what happens. But I'm kind of 50-50 between it because I can understand her wanting to have more time with her husband and the kids and going on trips and spending more time together versus now where he's going to be twice as exhausted, twice as busy and shit. But I mean, hey, bro, at the end of the day, that's also going to be twice the money, pretty
Yeah.
much. So it's like if she's living comfortably now, I wouldn't really say shit. If it was the other way around, right? Like if my wife was she was making fucking 7-figure salary and she was told, hey, if we give you more responsibilities, we'll give you like a 60% increase, and she's making fucking, let's say, 9 mil now. I mean, shit, babe, the house will be clean. I won't complain. You do what you want as long as I get to go to sleep with you in the bed and wake up with you in the bed. Hey, that's all I give a shit about. But I'm honestly, I'm 50-50 between this.
That's the other one. At a certain point, I was like, these people are fine. It's going to be okay. Like they'll be okay.
A
Yeah,
little,
man. I
a
mean,
little,
there's not much to complain about, but at the same time, there is.
a little bit of alone time will never, that'll heal it all. Um, but Luca, you have any thoughts on this before we move on?
It's funny. It's funny, Maddie, because you went to exactly where I was thinking about, which is like, hey, what happens if you switch the roles around? Like, because I don't know, have you guys encountered like, I don't actually know anybody who's like a stay-at-home husband, but I always find it kind of an interesting thing that like, if she were making like crazy money, could I be happy just like doing nothing? I don't know.
I'm, I mean, fuck yeah. I mean, we've all, I'm sure, seen the memes on Instagram, TikTok, or social media where it's like if your girl was making $10 million a year, what are you doing? And it's the guys, in an apron, a maid outfit, vacuuming the house, mopping the house, going grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning. And it's like, I mean, yeah, bro, I don't give a shit. If she's over there making the money and I don't have to work, she'll have a clean house, she'll have food on the table. And hey, if she walks into the house, babe, let's go to the bedroom right now. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, office. Yes.
Yeah, it's just not that hard, right? That's kind of how I mean, you got kids, you got to take care of the kids. That's a pain, but like, at the end of the day,
At the
kids are
same
fine.
yeah, for real, at the same yeah, that's the thing, like, if you already know that, you don't have to worry about and, because the number one reason for problems in a marriage and relationships is money. It's always money. That's the leading cause for divorce in most, situations like that. So the fact that
Mm.
she is having everything she wants, materialistic wise, house, bills paid, cars, school, vacations, things like that. I can fully understand. I wouldn't be able to understand why she'd be complaining. But then again, none of that is worth anything if you're still not able to spend time with your significant other at the end of the day because yeah, they're exhausted. They just sleep all weekend. They don't want to go out and have fun. So it's pretty much like a whole life change type shit.
Yeah, that's very fair.
Yeah, no, I think both of you guys put some good points forward. At the end of the day, I think she needs to shut the fuck up and listen to her husband. But that's just me.
Oh God,
Um,
bro. Yeah.
anyways, I don't know if anybody has any final thoughts on this before we move on to the next thing.
You give me hemorrhoids, dude.
So let me ask you. So you're engaged, right?
Yes, sir. Actually, yes, I am. Did you watch one of the
So how
previous
does like
episodes, or?
you're? I listened to a little bit of the previous one where you had the anarchist guy
Oh, okay,
on.
okay.
So how does like your wife obviously or your fiance, she knows, you feel a certain type of way about like the roles and this and that. Like
Dude, she
the,
agrees with everything this guy says.
Okay, no, she does not.
I
But
know women who are like that. So it's.
what was your question though?
It, just imagine.
It's
Oh,
just that, yeah, like how does that, work? Does she not care? Or because I've dated women who are very conservative socially, and that's kind of they had that expectation. And like, so is she one of those people, or is this something you guys disagree about?
I think that I lay it out fully. I'm looking for a specific type of woman at the end of the day because when I date, or at least when I used to, because now I'm not anymore, obviously. But when I used to date, it was for a purpose. At the end of the day, I'm dating to marry. You know what I mean? I'm trying to look for my wife. I'm not trying to mess around. I want a specific plan. I have a specific plan for my life. I'm trying to set out. I'm not trying to waste no time. So when it comes to the woman in my life, she has to understand that there's certain responsibilities she's gonna have and certain responsibilities I'm gonna have, and with those responsibilities, there has to be some sort of authority that goes along with that based off of your responsibility. Now, she's gonna be the support, and I'm gonna be the provider. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it goes. That's kind of how I want to structure my relationship and my family. And with that being said, I cannot be the authority in my relationship without actually having the privileges that come with that authority. I can't just say, oh, I have the authority, but only when she thinks it's okay for me to have the authority. Obviously not. So, we kind of have, I kind of spoke. We spoke together many times about this same topic, and over time, it kind of kept fleshing itself out because there were certain things that we didn't really get fully in stone, and we had to kind of talk about it, and I had to explain it to her, and she kind of told me her perspective, and we got to a certain point where um, we're both Catholics. That's kind of a big thing for me. If my girl is not Catholic, I can't be with her. So we're both Catholics, and we both have this worldview. And in the worldview, in the Catholic worldview at least, the woman submits to the man. She is the extension of the man. And so I told her at the end of the day, listen, in our family and our relationship, I value your opinion. I'm never going to tell you. I don't want to hear what you have to say about a certain thing unless it's a really like a time constraint kind of thing, or it's like super sensitive things or whatever the case may be. But whatever my decision is, that's the final decision, and that's going to be my responsibility in the relationship. That's that's the thing that's going to fall on my shoulders. I'm the one with the final say when we make big decisions, small decisions, whatever the case. And if I choose to, I will delegate that to you, but otherwise it will land on me. It will always, be defaulting to me at the end of the day. So she understood that, and we have this dynamic, and we understand the dynamic, and we move towards that. And when we have kids, it'll be the kind of more of the same, I suppose. I don't know if that answered your question fully.
That's really interesting because no, I mean that's a great answer, man. Because like, and that's the thing is like, I know people who are like this, and it's like it works for them. And like this is kind of my answer to the question is like, if you communicate and if you're clear and you're honest about what you want, what you expect, then it tends to be good. Like people are happy if they have clear expectations. How would you feel if knowing that and having this perspective on what a marriage is, what a relationship is, if your wife, she'd started a business or she had a side gig or whatever it was, and it started to be really successful, and she's like, "Hey, I'm making $500,000 a year. I'm making $1 million a year." How would that bother you? Would that be awesome? Would you keep working? How would you feel about that?
I think that'd be awesome. I'm just gonna use all that money to buy myself guns and things I can have fun with. At the end of the day, so that's just gonna be more money for me to buy my toys with, I guess. But no, but to be honest, yeah, that'd be cool. But I think she has a responsibility, and that's to our children when we eventually have some, God willing. And if I believe that her business or her small business or whatever she's doing is kind of hindering her ability to take care of our kids, and it's kind of making her this work first, mom later kind of idea, then if I make the decision that she will stop doing this thing, then she has to stop doing that thing, and we both understand that. But if she's doing this thing and it's kind of like a side thing and it's making her good money, and it's a good gig, and she's still taking care of our kids she's more mom than she is businesswoman, then she can definitely do it if she'd like, and she has fun with it. That's cool, and she's making a lot of money. Like I said, more money for me to buy my guns and buy bullets and all this type of stuff, and be able to go to the gun range and have fun. But yeah, no, I mean, I would have no issue with that. Again, unless it went in between her role as a mother.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not when I prescribe women, because I'll tell you something. In today's day and age, women are kind of told you need to look for a job, you need to be a boss babe, go find a career, all this type of stuff first, right out of high school, go to college, find a career and be a career woman and all that. I think that's horrible advice. I think the first thing women should do out of college, or out of high school rather, is look for somebody to settle down with and have children and have a family with that person. I think that's the first thing that they should be focusing on. And so the way we're kind of moving women towards the career and towards the workforce and all this kind of stuff, it's not good at all, So and my prescription is never, you can never work in your life, because women can work. You know what I mean? I think the first thing that they should be focusing on is family, children, and husbands. I think that's the first thing they should be focusing on. And then after they're done with motherhood, if they want to maybe be an author, write a book, or go and become a doctor or some shit, then they can do that. That's fine. But the first thing you should be focusing on right out of high school is finding a good man to settle down with, and having a family with that man. Continuing the species that we have, the human race. That's at least that's the way I see it.
So let me ask though, because I appreciate you saying that, because it is interesting, right? And I am curious though, like when you say, like, even as you're stating that, you go, I think this is what women should do. Like, who are you to say that, right? Like, one of the things that pisses me off, and frankly, is like when I know women who will tell me, like, oh, the problem with men is this, the problem with men is that, and I'm like, excuse me, you have no right to tell me what it was right or what's wrong about what men are doing. Like, you don't know what the experience is like being a man. You don't know what the conversations like are between guys. So it annoys me when women try to tell me what it's like to be a man or how men are. So why do you have a right to tell women what's good for them, what's right for them to do, or what's best for them to do?
Yeah, of course. I think I do use wrong language when I say I think. I think I should start saying I know. And I said it again, actually, I think, but I know that this is the best for society. You know what I mean? I think, or I said it again. Observing society, observing what makes society kind of in a better downtrend. I mean, what is the mission for society? What's the end goal of society? To continue the species, to continue making more humans that will then replace the humans that are already on Earth. That's kind of the goal for each human being at the end of the day. And when you look at how we've kind of pushed women outside of motherhood and we've moved them into the workforce, what we've seen is that the birth rate has collapsed to the point where we're not even at replacement anymore. We're not even close to it. We're way below replacement, and that's bad news for society and for the human race itself. And so what we kind of, at least what I kind of, base my prescription of women and how they should live their lives on is simply the betterment of society. And what would that be? Have children, create more human beings that will then replace the humans that are on this planet right now and continue the species, which is, at the end of the day, the main goal of a human being, to continue your legacy, to continue your namesake. I mean, that's kind of how it always has been except for the past couple hundred years. Actually, the past 100 years, maybe even less than that. The feminist movement has definitely changed that, and so I take it less of a this is what will make you happy. I could care less what makes you happy. I think what is more important and what we all should be worrying about is what's the greater good. What is best for everybody versus what makes me happy. Because I can do what makes me happy. But at the end of the day, is that best for everybody around me? Is that best for my society? Is that best for the world? Probably not. So I think there's a greater responsibility that women have, a greater duty that they have than just their own selfish desires. But that's my answer to that.
So I respect your honesty putting it that clearly, that like, because this is the thing, like, right, like it's a position, right? And it makes sense when you lay it out that way, right? My disagreement would be, I think, yes, society, the first goal of society, right, is to keep going. You want there to be more people. But I even think the second and maybe more noble goal of society is to make society better for people, and to make society better, more free, more dynamic, just more creative and beautiful and awesome for everybody. Um, and one of these, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a trained economist, but like I heard this stat once that basically the single greatest increase in productivity in the American economy occurred in labor productivity basically occurred when women entered the workforce. That basically, because what you did when you talk about population, like one of the reasons population is really important, obviously, because people matter, but also it's that, like, hey, if you have two guys, you can rub some sticks together, and if you have 2 million guys, you can have everybody have a bunch of jobs, and you can have people in fields and people in mines, and you have more people, you can do more stuff, you have more doctors, more researchers. And that basically, that's the problem when you have low birth rate, is that we're becoming less dynamic, we're becoming less successful, less able to solve problems. But the other thing that happens is basically when women enter the workforce, it's like you double the population. You have women who are scientists, and women who are, who are engineers, and women who are teachers, and women who are nurses, and women who are doing all these different jobs in corporate America. And so if you take women out of the workforce, you're basically taking us from a country with, let's call it 200 million people in the workforce, because you got children and retired people and everybody, retired people, just, I wasn't sure how it sounded there. You got children and retired people who aren't working. But if you take women out of the workforce, you become a less dynamic country. There's a reason that the countries in the world that are the envy of the world, that are the most successful, that are the most dynamic, there's a reason that, England, France, Germany, and the United States were the countries that led the 20th century and the 19th century. Is because of human rights. It's because of bringing more people into the system. The same way, you had Black Americans in the beginning of the 20th century weren't part of the economy because of racism. And the less racist we become, the more inclusive we become, the more dynamic and free and pro growth we become. I mean, so I think, candidly, I think the birth rate issue is a huge problem. I agree with you. And I think the honest thing is that it's a problem that has never been solved, and that it's a problem that we don't know how to solve. And I appreciate your candor with it, because, like, saying that, yeah, there is a solution. It's what we've been doing for 10,000 years. And, there's an honesty to that. For me, I don't want to give up on what we've gained, which is clearly, from an economic perspective, that growth, that dynamism, that success, and let's be clear here, the freedom, and the freedom that, hey, you are, in a democratic society, the person who gets to choose. This is what I think is best, and this is what I think is best for myself and for my family and for my livelihood. I mean, my mom was a working mom, and it was hard for her. I think it's something she felt very bad about, because she, felt like she was letting us down. But and for me and my two sisters, I think it was something that it forces you to be more independent. And I looked at people who had stay-at-home moms, and I sometimes go like, man, you got babied your whole life. I knew people whose moms were helping them do their homework when they're 15. And it's like, dude, like, you got to get off your ass and manage your own life. That's, your mom's not going to be there forever. And so, like, there's a lot of beauty in a woman staying at home, and there's a lot of beauty in a woman going to work. But I appreciate your opinion, man. It is interesting, but I don't, I also just don't think there's an easy solution to any of this stuff.
Yeah, I would definitely disagree. I think the easy solution to this would definitely be um, societally pushing. You don't even have to implement any laws, really. The societal push would be enough. societally pushing women to motherhood, societally pushing and influencing women to be mothers rather than be in the workforce. I think that, or rather, I know. See, I keep saying I think. I don't know why I keep saying that, but when it comes to between the two sexes, women are the most the most I don't know how I'm going to say this. The sex that's the easiest to manipulate when it comes to propagandize and all that. Women are definitely easier to propagandize than men are. We see this in the sense that women are the biggest consumer between the two sexes. They consume like crazy. And so when we're talking about the boom in the United States, you're saying that there's a diversity in how many people work, how many jobs. But, I would kind of argue by saying women who work today, majority of the industries and the fields that they take up are the same fields, and you can look this up yourself if you'd like. They're the same fields that they took up 60, 70 years ago. They're the same jobs: nurses, secretaries, teachers, early infant education. It's the same things that they took up back in the 60 years ago, 70 years ago. The same jobs that they had then, they have now, and they haven't really moved out of those same jobs. And when it comes to men, they still control the industrious sectors. They control the energy sectors. They control the industry, the industrial, the factory sectors, and all that. The innovations. Most of that is men. They do have women who work in labs, and they have women who work in engineering and things. Of course, there's going to be your exceptions, but the exceptions make the rule. And majority of the people who work in these different fields that innovate, these fields that build, that structure society, and that keep society going, most of these, I dare say more than 90%, are men. And again, these are all things that can be backed up by studies and statistics. Women, again, they still do the same jobs that they did 70 years ago. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, off the top of my head, I did Google just women in the labor force because I'm curious. I know for a fact that women get more bachelor's degrees than men now in America, and there's a problem with male unemployment and with male like lack of motivation. I think the young men in America there's something wrong with the culture. I agree with you on that, but I don't think it has to do with. This is my thing. I don't think it has to do with the women being too strong. I think it has to do with the men being fucking cowards and refusing to do hard work.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think people have been
agree.
coddled. And I think a lot of guys just sit around and play COD all day and they're like, oh, it's so tough. And I'm like, dude, they're hiring truck drivers for 100K in a lot of parts of the country. Like, you can get a fucking job.
Yeah, I agree.
And then you
I
could,
agree.
to your point, like, hey, it's better, in my opinion, if that guy goes and gets a job and then finds a girlfriend and is like, hey, I want to have a traditional conservative life and I want a woman who does that with me. That's better for society than a guy who just fucking sits on his ass.
Yeah, except
and we
women
have a lot of that.
aren't doing
That's
that.
The
And
bigger problem.
That's the thing. And so, but the problem here is that, when it comes to the duties
why
in
is
society,
it a woman's job to fix these fucking lazy dudes?
Why is it a man's job to fix these women who are modern women, who are more manly than the men themselves that you're speaking about? I think when it comes to duties in society, men have certain do you think women have duties in society that are higher than what they want to do?
I don't know. You're talking about motherhood, right?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think if you were to say what is a man's duty in society? Men's duties in society.
I think a man and a woman have the same job in a society, which is to make society better.
Yeah, but how do
Period,
they do
full
that?
stop.
But
And
how
for
do
some
they do
people, right, they're gay. So they're like this is where I don't think there's a simple answer, because there are gay women, there are lesbian women who are, most of them are not ever going to have children. There are gay men who most of them are never going to have kids. Maybe they'll adopt, maybe they'll do artificial this or that. But like, and this is my conception of God and my conception of like the purpose. I think of the will of God is for society to improve, basically. And people have different roles within that. I don't think God is so simple-minded to say that all men have one role, all women have another role. And it depends how conservative you are. Some people will draw a line to different places. But for me, I look at it as like, I think for a lot of men, God does want you, hey, be a kind, generous, strong father who raises strong, kind, generous sons and dynamic, strong, independent women. I think that's what God wants, is to raise people who can solve problems and get shit done,
I mean,
whether you're a man or a woman. And
you
that's how
can
we all get better.
you can say that, yeah. That's a very broad statement to say that we just make society better as people in general. But there are gendered duties that both the genders have, and so when we look at society, if a war were to break out and we were to be invaded and we need people to be conscripted, who are we conscripting? We're conscripting the men, because men are the ones who have an innate duty to defend the nation, to defend the people who are less powerful than they are. Because at the end of the day, and we had this conversation earlier on in the show, where men have, in your eyes, men have a duty to protect women, even if they are the ones who are attacking them, because they are stronger than women. And so now we look at what we actually have as a duty for men, and the duty for men being the protection of the people who are less powerful than they are. That most of those are women and children, of course. When the boat's going down, women and children are getting on the lifeboats first, and the men are going last, because men have a duty to society that is to protect. And so then we look at what duties do women have in society, and a gender duty, a thing that only they can do, and that would be motherhood. At the end of the day, there's no way around it. And so when we look at what is best for society, it's the survival of the society itself. And so when we look at birth rates, the society is not going to survive if birth rates continue this way. And women's duty, where we look at what is their gender duty that only they can do, that is motherhood. And women are not fulfilling their duty, and men arguably are still fulfilling their duty, considering we are still up for conscription. If anything were to happen and we need to defend this country, men will be conscripted, and that's the government's right to do that. Women won't be conscripted, but women have a duty, and they're not fulfilling it. And so when we look at this whole thing, it's still the idea of taking responsibility away from women and just putting it back on men. Men are weak. Men are the ones who are not looking to work right now. Men are not fulfilling their roles. It's like, okay, yeah, but neither are women. And are we just going to look past what women are failing to do? And that's be mothers, hold your chastity, be virgins, and all these different type of things. These are the things that make women more valuable in society, whether you like it or not. It's just kind of the way it works. And they're giving this up really early. They're not fulfilling their roles. They're not sticking to motherhood. They're not doing these things. They're not fulfilling their duties. And so when we look at men and they're not doing the same thing, I think it's pretty obvious why they're not. Because at the end of the day, men have duties. Men like to go to their duties. When you look at a man, at least for me personally, and I've heard this a lot from a lot of men, if they're at home doing nothing, they feel useless. It's like, no, I got to go up. I got to go do something. I got to go to the gym. I got to go to work. I got to do something. You know what I mean? And this kind of just goes to show men are pushed, even in their own psyche, to want to be productive, to want to do work, to want to go do something. And when we look at what their main role is in society, it's to protect, it's to provide, and they do that with families. And they don't have families anymore because women are out here being career women and they're being boss babes. And most women are pushing their children years where they decide, you know what, now I'm gonna settle down, I'm gonna find a husband, I'm gonna have kids. They're waiting all the way when they're 30. They're waiting when they're 28. The median age for pregnancies when it comes to women, it's 28 years old. That's super late when it comes to women. They're already past their fertile years at this point. Now we're heading to a point where they're heading into menopause, or at least they're getting close to it to a certain degree. They're definitely past their most fertile years, and it's no wonder why we see kids with a higher rate of autism in children. It's a higher rate of pregnancy abnormalities and problems that are happening because women are no longer having children when they should be having children. Mm-hmm. And we're pushing women away from motherhood, and then we're pushing them into the workforce. It's just not good for society at all.
So I think it's a really interesting question, right? Because there is a biological fact, which is true, that like men can have kids at 50 and there's some minor issues, but it's generally not a problem. Women cannot. And so you're right that that is the thing that we as a society have to grapple with. The point I will make, I pulled up the Bureau of Labor Statistics.gov, and this is Donald Trump now controls the government. So this is not these are not skewed statistics. These are from a Republican government that is very comfortable getting in the business here. It says women account for 52% of workers employed in management, professional, and related occupations in 2021. Okay, now to skip down here we go. For example, 19.7% of software developers, 29% of chief executives, that's CEOs, 36% of general and operational managers were women. So And okay, and then here you go. Women accounted for 86% of registered nurses, 81% of teaching assistants, and 79% of elementary and middle school teachers. So to your point, and I'll give you this, right? There's more. My elementary school, most of the women were teachers. You go to nurses, a lot of them are going to be women, right? But there is a big chunk of people like I just when you said like, hey, these rates are the same as they were in the 60s. 30% of CEOs were not women in the 1960s. And so like that's the only thing I will say to you is like you're saying, "Oh, this is a huge societal problem. There's a role for women and it has to be this." And I know, as you would say, I don't think I know that this is right. And I don't think it's my right as a man or anyone's right as a person to tell anyone else what their role is. I think
Well,
that there's a reason why we outcompete Saudi Arabia, why we outcompete, frankly, Russia, and it's because we are more free, open, and
I
dynamic.
don't
And
know.
so
Saudi
when we
Arabia
go to
is definitely
war,
catching up,
you
though.
know, Saudi Arabia is catching up to us.
Money wise, monetarily,
Their
financially
largest
speaking.
company is Their largest company is Saudi Aramco, which is a $1 trillion company in all fairness, but it's a company that's purely based on what they pull out of the ground, and you could say that's because God favors them or whatever. I'm sure they would. Our largest company is Apple, which I think is a $3 trillion company. It's either Apple or Amazon, which are companies made by men mostly, but many of the senior leaders are women, and these companies are, you know, they're not 80% men doing this stuff. It's a mix of people. And there's a reason why Apple was not founded in Saudi Arabia. There's a reason why Amazon was not founded in Saudi Arabia or Russia. It's because we are a place where there's not a known role for a person. There's a role that a person decides for themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
but
my opinion, at least.
I understand that point, but I think, or rather, I'm sorry. See, I always say it. I know. When it comes to, uh, there is all this innovation, and we have big companies that are formed in the United States. Let me just add, by men, by the way. But even if we go past that, there is no use for these companies at all if eventually at some point in the near future, uh, they're just going to be taken up by a bunch of people from Muslim countries because we can't replace our own population at the end of the day. Saudi Arabia, they're replacing their own population because they have women focusing on being mothers at the end of the day. They don't have to worry about that problem because they're focusing on being mothers. Here in the United States, we do have big companies that are made by men again, but we have a big issue here that these companies will not be run by Americans anymore in the near future if we continue with this birth rate. Now, just as you were saying about the women in the labor force, I have the Department of Labor statistics as well, where the most common occupations for women in the labor force, I'm going to name them for you, just the top 5, I suppose. Registered nurses.
Yeah.
Elementary and middle school teachers. This is in the list from most to least, by the way. Registered nurses,
Yeah.
elementary and middle school teachers, managers, all other, customer service representatives, and secretaries and administrative assistants. So when we look at the top 5, just looking at the top 5, besides managers, because managers I suppose would be a little bit more of a higher role in that sense.
It's a big bucket.
Yeah, all of these, or literally like that's 75%. I'm sorry, 80% of what the top 5 roles that women fill in occupations for women in the labor force, they're all service-based work. They're all service-based work, and all these different careers and occupations that women fill were the same ones that they filled, like I said, back in the 60s or 60 and 70 years ago. They were registered nurses back in that time as well. Majority of them were women. Majority of them were elementary and middle school teachers. As I said, they were early childhood development education teachers. They were customer service representatives, and they were secretaries as well. These things have not changed. There has been a little bit of a shift when it comes to office work, and they have more managers and HR. But even HR would still be service-based work. And so when we look at it, women still go back to their natural state of service. But the whole difference here is, are you going to be in service of your husband and your family, or are you going to be in service of a corporation and a boss who's going to tell you what you have to do anyways? So that's the choice that women have at the end of the day. You have a choice of, and it really truly is a binary choice. You have the choice to listen and to have to adhere to what your boss tells you at a corporation that's making more money than you'll ever see in your life probably, or to a husband and children who you will raise, and they will be the next generation of what we know to be the human race, and will grow up to do amazing things or normal things, whatever the case may be. They'll grow up to be great people, whatever the case. They'll grow up to make more humans that you'll then know are the product of the humans that you created. So it's just at the end of the day, it's all choices, and I think the choices that women are making today are leading to the detriment of. See, I keep saying I think the choices that women are making today are leading to the detriment of society, and yeah, we're going to be in a really cataclysmic state if we don't fix this birth rate crisis. And the way we do that is propaganda. Again, women are easily propagandized in comparison to men. All we have to do is propagandize, do propaganda, and that's it.
See, this is where like you lose me, right? Because you're making this argument at first. We're like, hey, it's this natural state. Women want these certain types of jobs. These top 5 jobs, they're all these sort of stereotypical jobs. Like, oh, this is interesting because I've seen data like this, right? My instinct to give a quick caveat is that, I would guarantee you that let's say those top 5 jobs are exactly the same as they were in 1960. I would bet you that in 1960, those top 5 jobs for women probably accounted for like 65, 75, 80% of all the jobs for women. I bet that most of the women in the society in 1960 were teachers, nurses, all these different stereotypical jobs. They're stereotypes for a reason. Maybe those are still the top 5 jobs. I would bet you that those top 5 jobs are much less than 60% now, and that even though they might be the most common still, I work in New York City. I walk down 42nd Street, and it's a ton of working women. And I know this because you also think it's a problem. If there weren't a lot of women who were working in the office and doing this stuff, it wouldn't be a problem, right? And so clearly women don't all want to do the same job. And so there is an argument there, right? That, okay, they want to do this. It's this role that women want to do. And then you go, but also we need to propagandize and make them think this is important. And I go, hey, what is a reasonable argument to me is that a goal for society is to get to a level of material wealth and success and freedom for individuals where if 40% of women or 60% of women go, hey, I don't want to work these demanding jobs. I want to, have a family and take care of my family and do that. Then you would have the freedom and the ease economically to do that. But they don't right now. And that's not about propaganda. That's about individual freedom and economic mobility. And that's a factor of dynamism and growth. And that's for me what it comes down to is like it feels gross to say like, hey, we need to be telling people what they should do. Like for me as a human being and as an American, I think that freedom and choice are ultimately the most important things in a society. And so like I have confidence that like the human species wants to go on and like we're going to get past this stuff. And the pessimism of it to me is very hard to hear that like, oh, we're all dead unless we like regress to these old norms. I'm like, no, I think probably we're going to get to a point where we figure out new ways to think about problems and we're a little more comfortable with like, hey, not everyone needs to follow into certain roles. Like you can choose and be comfortable doing whatever you need to do and the society will support you with it. And if a bunch of women want to be mothers at 19 or at 16 or whatever that is, that's a beautiful and an amazing thing. And if a bunch of women want to be, hard driving career corporate people or researchers or doctors, that's also an amazing, beautiful thing. And it's the same point of if men want to be stay at home, that's an amazing, beautiful thing. And right now, the society is so constrained because people don't have enough money, frankly, that like I think there's a lot of men and women who are doing shit just because they feel they have to. And so I don't know. We've been going for a long time though, so I don't think we ever got past the Reddit section.
No, we did. We definitely got past the Reddit section. We're now in regular topics, I suppose. Just to kind of respond to you real quick though, and I think I'll probably start wrapping this conversation up on here. What I would say probably is, it sounds nice, freedom and liberty and being able to do whatever it is that you would, do as thou wilt. It sounds nice, and it sounds nice in theory, but in practice, it's actually really detrimental. It's really horrible for society to, just to do as thou wilt. And when it comes to propaganda, whether you like it or not, whether it seems nice to you or not, we still use it, and we've used it for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. well, maybe not hundreds of thousands of years, but thousands of years we've used propaganda for different reasons, and even recently we've used it a lot. I mean, when you look at the don't do drugs, different campaigns that they would run in schools for kids. I mean, we're propagandizing kids not to do drugs, or we're propagandizing older people, or not older people, adults not to smoke. Tobacco-free Florida, for example. Or they propagandize people all the time. And when it comes to propagandizing women into being work women and being boss babes and all this type of stuff, we do that as well with things like Disney. Little girls are brought up to watching things like Disney, where the women are the strong, independent ones, and they're doing big career moves and all these different types of things, and we're indoctrinating women into believing that the most important thing that they can do, and the thing that's really beautiful that they can do in their lives, is to be career women, is to go into the workforce and be office workers, or be owners of big businesses, which most of them won't even do. And when it comes to your argument of women are taking up different roles rather than the big top ones, that's fine and all, but again, that's when it comes to the exception, and the exception makes the rule, actually. So the fact that there are some women who are doing some other jobs than the jobs that I listed doesn't necessarily refute my argument at all. My argument still stands, and if anything, it makes it stronger, because regardless of how many women are doing these other jobs, majority of the jobs that women are taking, majority of the women are taking these same jobs that they took all those years before. The majority of women are still doing that. Are there going to be women who do other jobs? Of course. Are there going to be women CEOs? Of course. Are there going to be women who are in engineering and STEM fields? Of course. But what we see with the numbers is that those are exceptions, and those exceptions make the rule. And so I guess I'll just close with this. Propaganda has always been used, and it's been used to turn women into career women with feminist movements and the movement towards egalitarianism, the movement towards women voting and women being in the workforce and having their independence, quote unquote, liberation and feminism. And might I add, feminism is the reason why a single income in the house is not able to support a family for the most part anymore. It's because of feminism and early feminism, but that's a whole nother conversation. We've propagandized women to become career women. I don't see why it's a problem to propagandize women into becoming mothers and into having the idea that motherhood is the most important thing. I don't see why that's an issue. If we've done it with smokers, we've done it with people who, even when the military conflicts were happening, World War II, we were propagandizing people to donate war bonds or to enlist themselves in the military. Women in support roles in the military, they were propagandizing women into joining the military as well. In those cases, we propagandize all the time for all sorts of different things. I don't see why this is any different and why this is a problem, that we should propagandize women into being mothers and prioritizing motherhood, especially when we have such an issue like the birth rate crisis. I don't think people truly understand how serious this actually is. But with that, I will close. I don't know if you want to give some final thoughts on that.
The last thing I just want to say on that, I mean, so is propaganda a real thing? Yes. Is it a thing that's been used throughout American history and it's something we're really good at? Yes, it is. I really do strongly disagree with the fact that the way we got here is because of propaganda. Like, feminism, when it started, was a radical movement. It was women who felt in their bones that they, as Americans, wanted to be free and wanted to be the captains of their own destiny. This was not a popular thing. This was very unpopular, and it was a thing that came from women and was unpopular with some women and spread because women grew to like the idea. It wasn't a propagandistic thing. It was a humanistic thing, and there is a difference. And so you can make an argument about, okay, has it now in the last 15 years changed? Sure, but dude, like, I watched a movie from 2005 when I was like a kid. I watched like Star Trek from 2007 or 2009. Was not a long time ago, and it's a very, there's like two women in the movie and they don't say anything, they're just sex objects. Like, the idea that, and I'm not like a super woke guy on this stuff, but the idea that like propaganda has been this driver of where we got to,
Yeah, but are
I just
women
think is
truly
patently
watching
not
Star
true.
Trek
Because
though?
my point, though, is just that the culture 10 years ago was not the culture today. The culture was much more conservative. And so the idea that like we've propagandized this idea of like through Disney was a conservative institution 10 years ago. Like 15, 20 years ago, Disney was conservative. So the last point I'll make is that I think the reason we got here is because I don't think it's my right as a man to tell a woman how to live her life. I don't think it's a woman's right as a woman to tell a man how to live his life. And I would die for the right of an individual to determine what they want to do. And if we're going to turn away from that as the pinnacle of what it means to be an American, it's a very dark day. So for me, you can say it's important. You can say it's critical. You can say that it's a natural place. People have a right to determine their own destiny, and I am optimistic and confident enough that we will figure out a way to build a society that enables us to grow quickly enough, and for people to have families, and for people to steer their own fate. And is propaganda a tool that exists in the world? Sure, it is. But you know, individuals want individual rights, and that's why we got here. It's not because of some big conspiracy.
All right, Luke, that was it was a phenomenal back and forth, man. I really do appreciate the
Yeah.
spirited debate, the spirited conversation there. It was awesome. Maddie, do you have any thoughts on this? I know you've been super quiet this entire time that we've been having this back and forth.
Apologies,
No,
man.
no, no. Yeah, it's no, bro. It's just I've been feeling nauseous, so talking. I've just been trying not to.
It's
I don't know, bro. It's like there's just like there's so many factors that come into play to that just makes everything with society and it just not even society, just the whole difference between men and women. And bro, there's just there's too many things that differ and make it better and make the obligations, like not the obligations. What's the word?
the duties.
So yeah, the duties and responsibilities that are needed and that are passed on and I don't want to say upgraded, but I want to say, changed, I guess, in a way. But it's just with the whole difference of mindset from, years ago to now, everything is completely different. Everyone has different sets of values and understandings and feelings of what they want to do and how they want to do it and what they want to pursue, instead of how shit has been for many years and it's worked and it was fine and everything works smoothly like clockwork. It's just I feel as we get older and older, generations are becoming more lazy and people are not understanding how vital their roles are and how sticking to like the origins, like how important that is. Because if not, everything with men and women and the job force and relationships and everything going forward is just everything will just turn into chaos and nothing will be real anymore, bro.
All right, that's good insight. I don't know if anybody has any final thoughts on this before we move on to the final thing of today's show.
No, I think, we've said a lot. I appreciate hearing your perspective too, man. Apologies for talking over everybody.
Nah, bro, that's the point of us having a guest. When we have a guest, usually I'm the one that stays quiet because Matt initiates the questions and everything. But it's just because I like to hear everyone's view, and sometimes I just get so immersed and lost in it that I forget that I'm a host of the show.
He's the woman in this relationship for sure.
No, it's definitely interesting to hear your perspective.
Damn right, damn right.
No, but yeah, it was
Wait,
definitely
what?
it was. I was just saying that Maddie's the woman in this relationship, but it's definitely awesome to hear your perspective and to debate it. Listen, one of the big reasons why I even started the show is because I love having conversations with people who disagree with me, and I love being able to go back and forth with our ideas and having them clash. And I have a passion for that. I don't know why. Maybe I'm a masochist. I don't know, but I love being able to have conversations like this. So I appreciate you coming on and being willing to have these spirited back and forth. Just to kind of end the show off on this note, I have two questions for you. I think this one is super quick, just a quick answer, and then the next one will move on into a little bit of your profession and kind of your work history and what you've done in your life in that regard. But for the question, this is something that we've asked pretty frequently for each guest that has come on the show, and now we're going to ask you: do you think it's feasible? Obviously, it's possible, and it does happen at times. But do you think it's feasible for a man and a woman to just be friends?
Yes, I think it is. But I also will give a lot of ground to the where the question leads. That like I think for a man and a woman to be true friends, they kind of need to both be 100% on the same page that they're never going to hook up. Like, and that's where like frankly, as someone who's been in a relationship for 3 years, one of the things that's really nice about being in a relationship is that I don't have to think about if I'm trying to hook up with this girl I'm talking to, like some random, like a girl I'm just talking to at a bar, or someone's friend of a friend. Like, it's just not even a factor in my brain, and it just makes life so much easier. You could actually be friends with women versus when you're single, it's always in the back of your head. You're like, maybe, you know.
Yeah, I definitely understand. I definitely see that. Um, we've had this conversation a lot of times with different guests in the shows, and Maddie is of the sentiment that men and women can be friends, and I'm of the opposite sentiment. I think people could probably have guessed that, but yeah, no, it's definitely interesting to see your perspective on it. Either way, moving on to the next bit. Give me 1 second here. So you mentioned on the pre-show, or I suppose the questionnaire, the pre-show questionnaire, that you worked in the energy sector. Do you still do that right now, or was that something that you did before?
Yeah, so um, I could give a whole spiel if you want, because I've kind of done a little bit of everything.
Yeah, go ahead. Just
Um,
kind of overview of everything that you've done in your career as of now. Because I mean, you're still
yeah, I mean,
fairly
so
young.
weirdly
You're
enough,
like almost 30 years old, right?
yeah, it's weird. So I just turned 29, but I have had like a million different jobs just because of the way my 20s have worked out. So I at some point I'd love to like write a book about it because I feel like I've been really lucky to have like a bunch of weird, interesting jobs where I learned a lot. So like my first job out of college was like there was a guy down the street from me who was a producer at Good Morning America. And so I went and literally knocked down his door, like boomer level. And I was like, hey, and he got me a job as like the guy who runs the scripts out to the anchors and shit, which was cool for like a single day. And then what you really start to feel is that job I worked from midnight until 9 in the morning. And so I was fully nocturnal for a year living that job, like very isolating. I had a roommate at the time. I would see him like twice a week because we just were on completely different schedules. um, I left that job. I worked on a political campaign for a little while. Then COVID happened. I worked a remote job at a big tech company, and then I ended up going to business school, got my MBA. And while I was in business school, get my MBA, I started working at a venture capital fund. And while I was at the VC fund, I was looking at just different technology companies, investments, like early small startups, and we're doing cool stuff with like microelectronics and batteries and cybersecurity. And I got really into that space. It ended up not being a great time for the industry, so I left. Which is when I sort of got my job in energy, which is I was at a big energy company down in Florida doing energy finance. And now I've left there and I'm doing cloud finance at a big tech company. So it's been an interesting road, and you just learn a lot, meet a lot of interesting people, fuck up constantly. And I think it's just like making mistakes and doing stuff and working through different potential ideas has been one of the things that's pushed me to like I have a Substack, weekly one pager.substack.com, which originally started out as doing looking at startups. Kind of when I'd left the venture capital fund, I wanted to keep that muscle strong, and so I was originally writing a one pager, like 1,000 words. One company once a week, 1,000 words or less was the tagline, and I did that for 5-6 months or something, just to kind of keep the muscle strong of looking at startups. And then at a certain point, I realized I didn't know what I'm talking about anymore, and it just sort of has now become what it is. Which the Substack is there. I got a couple hundred subscribers at so weekly one pager.substack.com, and I wrote one today that was just about media and whether we can make good movies anymore, because I do wonder that I go open up Netflix and it's a bunch of shit. It's just all trash. And so for me now, it's become an experiment and just sort of talking about the world and business and economics and who knows what. But yeah, so what I do for work is ever changing, I guess, is the simple answer, which is probably not a good thing, but it is what it is.
I think it's it has its pros and its cons. I have had a lot of jobs as well in my very young career time period. I'm only 21, but I did start working when I was 16. So from 16 to 21, I've had
Oh, nice.
almost 7 to 8 jobs already, different jobs. So in different industries,
Wow.
different things. So it has been. The negatives are that you can't really settle down in one place, and you're always job hopping, and to a certain degree that's kind of detrimental. But also the positives is that you get to see a lot of different industries and experience different things, and you kind of have a wide variety of knowledge on different fields, I suppose, which could prove to be useful. But yeah, no, I definitely see myself in that as well, a lot when it comes to that. But that's interesting. What would you say is probably your
Godspeed, man.
Oh,
Godspeed.
thank you, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hopefully, I'm not gonna lie. Hopefully, this podcast, gets big, and I won't even have to worry about having any more of those jobs. But um,
That's the
that's
dream.
yeah, that's the hope. That's the dream. But if you had to say the job that you like the most out of all the ones that you've worked at, the one that's provided you with the most experience, I suppose, that you enjoyed, which one would you say that would have to be?
So it's a hard answer, and I was thinking about this when we did the Reddit question earlier about the guy working the job. Where when I was at the energy company in Florida, and I won't say the name, but it was a very very large renewable energy company. Although they invested in natural gas and oil and everything. Um, I was working really closely with really, really smart people. And I think what's funny about the energy industry is that because you're building physical stuff that's very complicated and technically difficult to build, that's really expensive. And so a lot of the money of the business goes to like physical shit. And so you don't actually get paid that well in energy unless you're like really senior in the company. But people tend to stay in energy. And I think the reason people stay in energy is because it's hard. It's because it's complicated, it's difficult, and it's a real problem that needs to be solved. That like people need electricity. And so that job was incredibly demanding. I worked really, really long hours and I made like fine enough money. But I learned an enormous amount because the people you work with at a fast moving energy company are some of the smartest people around. So for me, that was probably the best job I've had so far.
That's good.
Okay, that's yeah, that's interesting. Matt, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, it's very interesting, because it's not every, you we know that there's so many different jobs out there. We know there's so many different opportunities and businesses and careers, and it's always interesting to hear about something that you never really gave too much of a thought of and like of how much actually goes on behind the scenes of that career. So that was really interesting to learn some things and really understand the like some of the dynamics behind it, and especially at such a young age still.
Yeah, dude, like you run into people who, especially like the team I was on, there's a lot of guys who were former oil guys out of Texas. And you just hear these like crazy stories about like oil is just, it is still a very old-fashioned business. And it's a business where like if you want to like take a lot of risk and work a lot of hours and like fuck shit up, you can make really good money. And you could also just get in like crazy situations where they're like, "Oh, we're gonna send like a bunch of guys to go like build an oil pipeline in Venezuela or something," and like that stuff does still happen. And it's kind of awesome when you run into people who've been doing that.
Yeah, the energy sector has always been pretty pretty interesting to me. I mean, currently I'm like I'm into like right now I'm working in aviation. So working in aviation, I've worked in aviation for a long time. So it's kind of like the industry of the fuel that goes into the planes, and then the planes that and all the different parts of electricity. It kind of all ties in, you know. And so it's really interesting to me, the energy sector and everything like that. So it's
Yeah.
cool to see you talk about it and to see your experience with different people who also work in that those areas of energy. It's really cool.
No, I appreciate it, man. Best of luck with aviation. There's a lot of kind of cool, weird stuff happening over there too.
Oh, 100% there is, especially with Boeing. Wink, wink. But yeah, man. Listen, I really appreciate the conversation. It's been really awesome. It's been a really awesome show. A lot of good back and forths and interesting convo at the end there as well. Again, we appreciate you for coming on the show and being here and spending the time to speak with us, man. It was a really good one.
Sandy, I appreciate the spirited debate. It's definitely memorable and a lot to think about.
100%, man. Like I said, I love doing these, and it's hard to find a good debate partner that'll give you that spirited debate. So I appreciate that. Is there anything you want to shout out before we close out? Anything you want to say, and any final thoughts or words that you would like to say before we close out the show?
No, I mean, I wish you guys a lot of luck with it. Like I said, I mean, I've tried 3 or 4 times to do the podcast thing. I have a rule for myself that I'm not allowed to start a podcast until I get to 500 subscribers on the Substack. And I'm at like 350 now, so you never know, we could be there soon. But it's really hard to actually stick it out and to do this thing and to sit down and record it. And I will tell you this, if you're listening to this, anybody out there, like these guys are very organized. Like one of the things that gives you a lot of like comfort, because we don't know I'd never met you. I still have never met you. We've been on the phone for 2 hours now. You guys were very organized about like, this is the time, here's the form. And with a complete stranger, that goes a long way. That like, okay, like no matter what, at least I'm going to show up and they're going to be on the call and we're going to do this thing. And that's half the work, I think, is the consistency. So I wish you guys a lot of luck. And if anyone's listening to the end here, feel free to give me a look at the so it's weekly one pager.substack.com. My most recent one I just published today was it was basically, are movies bad or are we just dumb? And basically going from there.
It sounds
So
like a
if you
good
want to
one.
give that a look, feel free to subscribe. Yeah, I enjoyed writing it. I'll end on this thought, which was basically just that like if you're like a smart creative person, in like 2000, you're not going to go write like plays or write poetry because no one cares about plays and poetry. You want to go write movies. And that, I kind of go through this thought process that like, yeah, in the 1800s, Steven Spielberg probably would have been writing like concertos or something. And in the 20th century, in the 1900s, the 1980s, Steven Spielberg's directing movies. And, in the 21st century, maybe the next Steven Spielberg is making a podcast with TikTok on the side. So, who knows? Maybe you guys are doing something right here.
Yeah, getting with the
We're
times, I
hoping
suppose.
that, bro. We really are.
Yeah, we definitely are as well, and,
Yeah.
and kind of
Hey.
kind of to your point, yeah, we want to make sure that we kind of foster the most comfortable environment for a guest where they don't have to worry about what it is that they need to do except for just be here on time. You know what I mean? And just be yourself and be here on time. Pretty much that's all it is. And just show up and just talk. You know what I mean? That's pretty much all we want the guest to worry about. And yeah, maybe even. Shit, maybe we even get a little bit of a shout out on your Substack, man. Next time you post, who knows?
Yeah, could be. Let's see. Well, it might be a month and a half before I write the next one. You never know.
Yeah,
Weekly is more of a metaphorical idea.
yeah, no, yeah, for sure. I mean, you keep yourself to a schedule. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. No, but no, yeah, it was definitely a good episode. It was very phenomenal. I don't know if Maddie, you have any final words, any final thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, it was really I really love having so many diverse guests on the show and everything because you know it it really broadens the spectrum from what we're used to and from South Florida and the people and the culture and people with different, similar experiences and things. So it's always nice to hear people from other parts of the US. You're actually our second person from New York. So it's actually interesting to hear everyone's different stories, everyone's backgrounds. Because then again, like I said, we know there's people living in all the states of the U.S. and having different jobs, but it's always like a nice eye opener to have like conversations with them and how different everyone's experiences are around the US. That you'll never have somebody with the same experience, personality, way of talking, and everything. So you were a phenomenal guest. It was really interesting to hear a lot about the energy in your career in it and everything. And we really do thank you for being on the show.
I appreciate that, Maddie, and it's nice for me as a straight white guy to get to be called diverse. So I appreciate that.
White privilege seeping out of you, man. With that being said, thank you very much for coming on. But with that being said, first and foremost, thank you very much to each and every one of you who are listening. You spent your time with us here, listening to our voices and listening to our dumb ideas, especially mine with the fact that women shouldn't vote, which we never actually got to, interestingly enough. We never actually got to women not voting.
Good.
which is interesting. But either way, thank you so much for listening to us speak, listening to our conversations, listening to the podcast itself. You could have spent it anywhere else. You could have spent your time anywhere else, listening to anything else, doing anything else. But you chose to spend it here with us, and we appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. Disclaimer: the views expressed on the show by the individual hosts and or guests do not necessarily reflect the views of the CatFiveBoys podcast. Further disclaimer: the topics we discuss on the show sometimes can get a little bit dark, sometimes can get a little bit deep and sensitive. If that's not your thing, this might not be the show for you. We have clips. If you can't catch the full shows and you want to get some of the best bits, and I say some because if we gave you all of the best bits, then what really would be the point of the shows itself? If you want to get some of the best bits, some of the funniest parts, some of the most insightful parts, maybe the most contentious debate areas, you want to get some clips of those, make sure to go check out our clips accounts, TikTok. We post clips on TikTok, Instagram, and if you're watching here on YouTube, we post shorts on YouTube, so go check that out as well. Make sure to go follow those accounts as well and everything. We have clips there. If you want to be a guest on the show like Luke was today and have some good conversations, if you disagree with me about the fact that women shouldn't vote, or you disagree with Maddie about being a simp, and you want to debate us about something, then feel free to send us a DM on Instagram. Even if you want to just talk about something cool that's happening in your life or something that's really interesting to you and you want to talk about it, have a conversation about it on the show, we would love to have you on either way. Just send us a DM on Instagram at CatFiveBoys with showing us your interest in being on the show and giving us a little bit of a short bio about yourself, kind of your age, your name, where you're from, and kind of what you want to talk about. And we'll definitely have you on ASAP. I stream every single Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. At least I try to. I will definitely do it this weekend, depending on how the Wi-Fi is, because the Wi-Fi was giving me trouble today on the show. And imagine on a stream, it's even worse. But like I said, hopefully the Wi-Fi is better on Saturday. I'm able to get it fixed and, tune it up a little bit. But either way, with that being said, again, thank you very much for watching. Sorry, I wasn't even done. Again, I stream every single Saturday. We do TikTok invasions where we go in there and we debate different people who are on TikTok lives, and we absolutely dismantle their worldviews and we replace it with something better. And then afterwards, we do some games. We play some Wordle, maybe some crosswords. So if you guys want to go check that out, it's a fun time. Maybe you want to talk shit on me live on stream, tell me how I'm a misogynist or something, or maybe you want to show me some love. That would also be really cool. Make sure to go do that. The link to that will be in the description down below. We have merch. I don't like to call it that, but whatever. We sell rosaries. We're looking to start selling some T-shirts. We have different rosaries in the store right now. The store is a little bit of a work in progress. It might look a little empty, but we're gonna start adding things as we keep going, adding more different variety of items that you guys could choose from. If you guys want to go give it a look, you don't have to buy anything, of course, if you don't want to, but just giving it a look is good enough and appreciated. Again, like Luke was saying, make sure to check out his Substack. The link to his Substack will be in the description down below as well. So all the links to everything we mentioned will be in the description down below if you guys want to go check that out. Again, thank you so very much for watching and listening and investing your time with us today. God bless the new Pope, Leo the 14th. May God be with him and may he serve the church well. And with that being said, again, thank you so very much for listening. We hope you're having a phenomenal night, phenomenal day, whatever it is. God bless each and every one of you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
No, y'all.